How is it going, guys? It's Kevin from SubiSpeed. Today we're going to be installing the new Grimmspeed equal length header on our WRX. Right now we have the Tomei unequal length header on there. Not the best for performance, but it does give you that iconic Subaru rumble. That being said, we're going to swap it out, go back to an equal length setup with this new Grimmspeed header, and then once this is installed, we'll go back to the dyno and see what kind of gains we get. Now, before we get into the install, I'm gonna give you a heads up. Obviously, we have a couple different, or a decent amount of aftermarket parts already installed on the car, so yours is probably not gonna look exactly the same, but the install process is still going to be very similar. So I'm gonna walk you guys through everything that I can. The first step is gonna be removing the plastic splash guard, which we do not have. It's just a couple of pop clips and bolts. And then we need to take off this skid pan here that's held in with 4 bolts. Once we have the skid plate off, we're gonna work on getting the J-pipe removed, starting in the back here with the connection to the catback. So just remove those 2 bolts. We also need to remove this 14mm bolt that's holding the J-pipe to the support bracket here. We've got the back of the J-pipe unbolted, so we can start working on the connection to the turbo. We're gonna be removing this heat shield on top here that's clipped into the O2 sensor, so I'm gonna unclip that. And then there's 2 bolts that are holding this to the engine. So there's 1 bolt right here. You can see it coming down through this bracket. And then there's another bolt that you can't see right now, but I'll show you after, but on the top right hand side of the heat shield. So I'm gonna get rid of this one first. Now this one is kind of a pain to get to, so if you are having troubles getting to it from the bottom of the car, you can try from the top and it might be a bit easier for you. Make sure to unplug both of your O2 sensors and disconnect or unbolt the ground cable that's held in with a 10mm bolt as well. The only thing holding the J-pipe to the turbo now are these 4 nuts. There's also going to be a bolt right here holding this bracket to the engine. Mine is missing, but don't forget to remove that one as well. These are 14mm nuts. There is a tendency for these studs and nuts to either strip, round off, or break off completely. So definitely spray these down with some PB Blaster a couple hours, if not days ahead of time, especially if you live in a place that rust occurs often, like here in Iowa. Obviously this car does not get driven out in the winter, so I don't really have to deal with that, but hopefully these all come off clean. Once you've got those nuts off, you can get this bracket off here first. And then we can slide the J-pipe off of the studs. We're gonna move over to the intake side, and I'm gonna loosen up this clamp so that we can slide it off of the inlet here. slide this coupler over just a bit to give us some more room. And now we need to remove the two 10mm bolts that are holding the inlet in place and unplug the solenoid here. I've also loosened the worm clamp that holds the blow-off valve to the inlet. Yours is going to be a blow-pass valve. You don't have a blow-off valve, but that's going to allow you to separate it from the inlet and give us a little bit more room to work with. We need to get the two bolts that are holding the charge pipe in place next. These are a little finicky to get to, but do what you need. I've got the coolant hoses to the turbo pinched off, so there's one on the bottom here and then one up top. I'm gonna move the clamps and then we will pull these off. You may want to have a drip pan underneath while you're doing this, just in case there's some leftover fluid that comes out. We're gonna separate the turbo oil pan from the turbo. There's three 10mm bolts holding this in place. One up top on the heat shield here, and then two on the bottom. Now when you separate this, there is going to be a gasket that you will want to replace when you reinstall this, so do keep that in mind. Before we're able to remove the header, we need to loosen up this high pressure oil line with two 17mm wrenches, which I've already done, so I'm just gonna undo it with my hand here. And now we can start working on these 6 bolts that are holding the header in place. Now we can work on removing the 4 nuts that are holding the manifold to the turbo. Mine are actually starting to pull these studs out because I think they are seized up. So we are gonna have to replace those. To get to the ones on the other side, we need to remove this heat shield here that's held in with two 10mm bolts. All right, so yesterday we ran into a bit of an issue. We had a couple of the nuts and studs seize up on me when I tried to separate the old header from the turbo. I was able to get out 3 of these studs with some help of some fire, but one of them was very, very stuck, and unfortunately we ended up screwing up the threads in the turbo housing. So I had to drill it out, and for now we're just going to be using a nut and bolt. Ideally we'd tap it and use a coil insert of some sort, but like I said, we're gonna run with a nut and bolt for now. It's gonna work just fine. I've got 3 new studs in, and now the new Grimmspeed header is connected to the turbo, so we can get this installed on the car, and then we can get everything reinstalled and get it started up and take it to the dyno. Before we get it installed in the car, make sure you grab the new Grimmspeed gaskets and get those slid onto the studs. And those should just stay there. And now we can raise the manifold and turbo assembly up and have the nuts ready to go as well. And we'll slide these onto these studs. Once we've got that on there, we're gonna torque down those 6 nuts to 31 foot-pounds. There is a pattern that you wanna do this to, so we're gonna torque down the inside nuts first. And then for the nuts on the outside, we're gonna do a crisscross pattern. So do 1 nut on this side, and then the opposite corner on the other side, and then come back and do the other one that you haven't done on this side, and then finish off on the other side. So now the header is essentially installed. All we have left to do is get everything put back together. So the J-pipe, this little oil pan here, and all of the hoses. Double check to make sure you have everything reconnected. You don't want a hose that you forgot. You don't want coolant all over the place or oil. I've done that before and I got oil everywhere. So it's not a good time. So make sure you double check to make sure everything is reconnected. And then once you're good to go, you can start it up and then either take it to the dyno or go out for a drive. That pretty much covers the install, guys. Like I said, Grimmspeed includes everything you need to get it installed. They even include some backup studs just in case you break some during the install, which I happen to use 3 of, so that was very nice of them. And they have their high quality gaskets that are super thick to make sure that you aren't gonna get any exhaust leaks. Now, if you wanna pick one of these up for yourself, they're currently in stock. Check out the link down in the description. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.